Hey guys, I got a tutorial here for you based on some requests in the comments of my Patreon. Someone had asked me how to do sort of a basic grass growing or moss growing effect where it would sort of like spread across a surface. I think it was based on this video here that you see, just kind of this like helix of logs or branches or whatever where you have some stuff growing on it. It's a really simple effect. I use it all the time. It's very useful. I'm probably this is gonna be a multi-part tutorial though, because I think I'm gonna show you guys a few different ways on how to achieve this. So I'm deciding to release the first one for free, just on YouTube and Patreon and stuff for everybody, just because it's such a simple method that like, it's nothing new. It's like, I'm sure you could probably find another tutorial explaining how to do this. But then I'm going to release a couple more tutorials later on that show you a couple different ways to achieve this in a more dynamic way. One where we'll probably use Simple Tree to kind of get some dynamic looking grass. And then probably another one where we'll actually simulate it in Vellum so you can actually have colliders and things coming with it. But for this first one, it's going to be a quick and easy tutorial on how to achieve this effect. So let's get started here. And let's put down a geo. And then what we want to do, so let's dive in here. What we want to do is put down a sphere. So you can have this grow across any surface that you want, do whatever you want. I'm just using a sphere because it's simple and I can, but you could put logs in there or whatever. Then we're going to put down a scatter, or let's put down a normal, just to give it some normals. And a scatter. And we're going to scatter some points across this. And we can relax the iterations here to kind of make it a little bit more random. And then we'll just crank this up to like a lot more, like 100,000, something like that. Okay, cool. Then what we want to do is let's put down an attribute randomize. Attrib randomize. And what we're going to do is we're going to randomize p-scale. And a good way to visualize this is to click and hold on this little cube thing and change your particles to lit spheres. Now they look gigantic because they all have a p-scale of like 1. So let's change this to custom ramp, and then it only needs to be 1-dimensional. And then let's bring this to like, let's make the left side like 0.079. And let's make the farthest right side be something like 0.334. And then the middle can be somewhere in between, like 0.12, something like that. Okay, so this looks giant. So maybe we can take this global scale down, which is nice. You can kind of just keep this ramp the same, but then scale everything down. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. And then maybe let's have one that's like here. We got 0.3. Let's put another one here that's like 0.2 so that we only have a few really large ones. And then the rest are kind of like that. So we may need to scale this up or down when we come to actually instancing our model onto this. But for now, we can kind of leave it like that. Cool. Okay, let's bring this back to points. Okay, the next thing I want to do is let's take a look at my normals here. If I copy something to this, they're all going to be pointing exactly outwards. And I don't really want that. I want them to be a little bit more random. So what we can do is put down a MOPs, or actually let's turn on this. I guess we don't have that yet. Let's put down a MOPs randomize. And what we want to randomize is orientation. And that's now if we click this, you can kind of see the way they're going to be oriented. And what I want to do is I want to turn these all to 0 for now. So this is great because it adds an orientation attribute for me. Cool. And then right now, if they're all at 0, they're all going to be pointing along this blue line, which is exactly what I had before with the normals, right? Okay, but I want to randomize this just a little bit. Great, now it's not showing it. That's cool. Probably need to refresh my stupid viewport. Damn it. Okay, here we go. And we're back. All right, so let's just give this a little bit of randomness. Let's do let's figure out which one we want to move. So this, Okay, I want these to be spun 360 degrees in each direction while still facing outwards. So if I do minus 360 here and 360 here, you can see the blue lines are still facing outwards, but all the other lines spun around. And then let's just do like a little bit, like minus 5 here and 5, and then like minus 7 and 7. So what that's going to do is it will kind of randomize the way the plants are oriented. Okay. The next thing we want to do, this is kind of really where the magic happens, is we want to put down some sort of fall off that goes from 1 to 0 and spreads across this. So what we can use is a MOPs spread fall off. You could also use a MOPs shape fall off or any other kind of fall off you want, but I like using MOPs because it's free and it's so easy to make fall offs. Okay, so we'll click preview so we can see it. And then let's just click this button here and pick a single point somewhere all in the top, like right there, and then hit enter. Great. And then what I can do is under animate, I can just hit spread, and there we go. And I can animate this. And maybe I'll make the fall off width a little more broad like that, and maybe give it some noise, maybe less amplitude and higher frequency, something like that. And then let's just animate this from 0, and let's go to like 120 frames and animate this down to where we see it. Maybe it doesn't even need to be 1, just could be like there. Cool. Let's see what that looks like. When we hit play, with the real-time toggle turned on, that is looking good. Okay. Something else we could do if we want to kind of vary this up a little bit more, we can put down a MOPs noise fall off afterwards. And then instead of blend mode set, we can put it to overlay, which will only affect the areas that have a value of less than 1. So all of the areas that are not white, basically. And we can hit preview fall off so we can actually see what we're doing. And then we can just crank this amplitude up if we want, or crank up the frequency. So that just kind of noises up this sort of like fade-in area. And maybe make the amplitude a little smaller and the frequency a little lower. We can change the noise pattern to curl or something like that. Maybe make lower frequency, something like that. Okay, cool. So great, we've got it. There we go. But how do we turn this into grass or plants or moss or whatever we want, right? So what we need to do is let's put down a null. Let's just call this alt PTS. Great. Let's copy it. Let's come up. We'll name this sphere or something. And then let's put down a instance node. Okay, we can turn this sphere off. Let's dive in, delete this add, and put down an object merge. And put that on there. Okay. And what we need to do is we need a model now. So I have prepared a couple of plant models that I just got off of, I think, Megascans or something like that. So you can see I've got this one here. It's just like a piece of ivy. This one here. And they're just 3 variations of the same plant, basically. And they're all aligned so that they are pointing in the positive X direction. So you can hit, they come in giant, you hit a match size and, hit it so that the Y, justify the Y so that the minimum is the same. And so it's sitting on the ground there, and then you can just kind of transform it down and kind of prepare it that way. So they're all the same size and in the same position. Great. So what I want to do is I want to hover over this guy, copy it. Let's go back into the instance. And in order for this to work, we need to, that's weird. Where are the points? Interesting. Got my points. I copied it. And then when I go into instance, it should be there, right? Ah, there we go. Cool. It's because I renamed it sphere and it broke the link there. Okay, so copy this plant again. Let's come back in. And we need to add a couple of attributes to make this work. So the first thing is an attribute create. And I know I've shown how to do this in other tutorials in my Patreon, but if you don't have my Patreon or you've never seen them, this is just an easy way. I use this all the time for instancing stuff. It's really quick. So the attribute name we want to create is called instance, which is a point attribute, and it should be a string and not a float. And in the string field, you just paste that object, the plant. Cool. So what we can do now is if we come up to instance and click on Redshift object instance, we can do full point instancing, and it allows you to see the plants. See that? Now they're really tiny. Okay, so we probably need to adjust our P scale. So we'll come in, we can click show all objects, and let's go back to our, where is it? The P scale here, and let's crank this back up to like 1. Okay, maybe that's too big. Let's go 0.6. Probably still too big. 0.4. 0.3. Yeah, something like that seems pretty good. So you can see now we have this sort of real-time visualization of what our plant's going to look like. So if I turn off this MOPs randomize, you can see they're all going to be aligned in the same direction. So that was what the MOPs randomize is for. Okay, but you can see if I'm moving along, this isn't actually affecting the P scale. I have this fall off, but it's not affecting the P scale. So how do I get the MOPs fall off to affect the P scale? Well, let's put down a wrangle, and we'll just do at P scale times equals at MOPs underscore fall off, and then put that there. And then boom, there we go. So now if I hit play, it should do what I want it to do. So you can see it's spreading, it's working. Maybe I should do it with less points so you can actually see it in real time. But it is working. So basically wherever the MOPs fall off is 1, the P scale is 1. Wherever the MOPs fall off is 0, it's anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So there you go. That's the basis of the growth effect. It's super simple, right? Okay, let me reduce the amount of points I have here so that I can, we can actually kind of see this in better real time. Let's go. Let's hit it again. Oh, that's weird. Why did it do that? Okay, I reduced the number of points, and then in my MOPs spread fall off, it's because I selected a point, and it's a random, you have to kind of reselect it because I didn't do it procedurally. So let's try that again. There, now it's working. Okay, but how can we make this better? Well, one thing we could do, we've only instanced one of these plants. We want to vary the instances. So if we come back in here, we can do an attribute randomize, and the attribute we want to randomize is instance. And what we want to do is do a custom discrete. And then instead of float, we do string. So we can paste plant 01 here, and then paste plant 2 and plant 3. Then we can just delete this third one. We don't need it. Okay. So what that's going to do is, well, now we can't see it. Let's do show all objects. Or I guess we need to come out. So now we've got some randomization here. So if I can also give it different weighting. So if I wanted to see more of plant 1 and less of plant 2, I could just kind of bring this slider down. It's a little touchy, like when you're using this instance thing, you kind of have to come in and out and reset the viewport a little bit sometimes, but it gives you pretty good feedback, and it's pretty quick. Okay, but I'm just going to leave them all at 1. Okay, cool. So that's how you add instances. If you want to add more objects, you could just keep clicking this. So if you didn't want to do plants, you could put a model of grass in there. You could put, whatever you want in there, basically. But the great thing about this is that it renders really quickly. So having the viewport performance is one thing, but if I fire up Redshift, it's like, even though you have like thousands or a million copies, it handles it really, really quickly when you use this instance node. It's great. And you can change this from fast point instancing to full point instancing. I'm not sure what the difference really is, but I don't know, they seem kind of the same to me. Or if if this is getting really heavy in the viewport, you can just do off and it just shows you just the points. But I'll leave it at fast point instancing. Okay, what else can we do? Well, in the sphere or in the growth part here, there's something else that we can do to kind of smooth this out and make sure I have show all objects. So right now I feel like it's moving maybe a little linearly. It's kind of like they kind of just jerk to a stop. And maybe I want these a little larger. Let's bring this to like 0.4, something like that. So it kind of fills the space a little better. You can really change the shape of the sort of the leading edge here. So right now they're just kind of getting small here and then they just slowly scale up, which is fine. But we could do a MOPs remap remap falloff. Put that after this. And with that, we can kind of remap what's happening on the leading edge. So let me first, what I want to do is kind of extend this so I can see what I'm doing. And let's change this to B-spline and this one to B-spline as well. And maybe what I can do is have it sort of start at 0 and then like really quickly get big and then kind of come back down or stay big till like here and then come back down a little bit. So you kind of get what that does is it gives you this like leading edge. So it's sort of like almost gives us this ripple effect. So it kind of gives it a little more life. Or, you could add like a bunch of ripples. You could have one here, kind of come down and kind of gradually ripple as it moves through. It's kind of cool. Gives it a little more life, right? But I think I liked it better with just the leading edge like that. Okay, but how else can we smooth this out? Well, there's this great other MOPs thing called the MOPs spring modifier. MOPs spring modifier. And I think there's two. There's MOPs spring. So there's MOPs spring modifier and MOPs spring modifier plus. I'm not sure what the difference is. The MOPs spring modifier plus is just for ringing. So I think the MOPs spring modifier is part of the free version. So if you guys aren't using MOPs, everything I'm using here is free. You can download this for free on the MOPs website. It's super handy to make like fall-offs and stuff like that. And what this MOPs spring modifier does, let's just leave it at the default and see what it does. Makes everything sort of like bouncy, right? That's interesting. Okay, but if I change the spring constant and the damping coefficient down to like 0.127, or sorry, 0.127, let's see what that does. Makes them like really bouncy. So there's like this really ripple going through it. Okay, cool. Let's change the damping coefficient. Let's bring that down, see what that does. Interesting. Is it doing anything? I can't really tell. I feel like it's doing something, but let me turn it off and just see. I don't know. I don't think it was doing anything. That's really weird. It should be doing something. Let's hit reset simulation. Let me try making the high. Okay, so it says higher numbers means stiffer springs. Let's make loose springs with a high damping coefficient. See what that does. So you can use this to kind of make things like springy, or you can use it to sort of like smooth things out a little bit. And I think that a value of, I think I used a value of around like 0.127 and 0.653, something like that. And maybe this needs to come after the P scale. Maybe that's what's happening. There we go. That seems like it's doing something more. Yeah, because if I put it before the P scale, if I put it here, it's not being affected. The MOPs fall off isn't making anything grow. So you have to kind of put it afterwards. So that's what the problem was. It wasn't doing anything at all. So now you could kind of see the difference. If I kind of change these numbers, they're going to look like really bouncy. So it gives you these like ripples. So if you want it to look like that, that's kind of fun, right? But you can also just kind of play with these numbers a bit to make it not really quite so bouncy, but really just make it a lot smoother. So 0.127 and 0.653, I think, were the numbers that worked for me. So yeah, it just makes it sort of like slower, smoother. They kind of grow to a slow stop instead of like jerking to a sharp halt. Cool. So that is great. Okay. What else can I do? I think that's pretty much the effect, right? Okay, but how can I'm going to show you a little bit of like lighting and shading, kind of how you can use this effect to kind of create a fun leading edge that glows or changes color or something like that. So let's just put down a dome light, and let's see. I think let me just copy one that I have. Let's do this, go to light and texture, just pop this. I think it's just a grayscale gorilla environment that I have. And then let's save this in case it crashes. Let's go Redshift, open render view, and that should pop down a camera for me. 1 second. Okay, cool. So let me just kind of position the camera, go to the camera, let's look around. Let's move this forward, kind of center it a little bit in our frame so we can really see what we're doing. Something like that. Cool. And then we're going to unlock that, and then maybe just move this light dome around a little bit so I can kind of better, let's just kind of move this and see what we can get. There we go. Something like that. Just give us a little bit more, a little better lighting. And then I always like to, in my camera, I go to Redshift camera, change the optical to filmic, and then you kind of have to compensate for the exposure here. I like to go to color correction and tone mapping so that it kind of gets rid of those blown out highlights there. And I can kind of bring this back up a little bit. Makes it look a little better in my opinion. A little more filmic. Okay, great. So we've got that. Let's texture these. So let me just grab my plant texture. Okay, so I've got a texture called plant that if you open it up, it's literally just the textures that came with the model from Megascans, I think. So it's just like the albedo going into the diffuse, the roughness and the roughness, the normal into the bump, and the opacity into the opacity color. It's nothing special. I haven't adjusted anything. It's literally just that. So what I'll do is I'll copy this, and then you go to each of these and go to the render and just make sure you pop that into the material slot there. Okay, so then now if I fire this up, there should be green plants. So let me just make this bigger so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing here. So that's cool. Let me go back a few frames and hit refresh so that it's kind of like halfway there. And what can we do to make this look cooler? Let's go to the material. And first of all, let's give it some subsurface scattering. So if we go to subsurface and crank this up, all right, that's cool. But let's make this thin walled because that works a lot better for leaves. It's a lot faster too. And maybe we make the color something like a yellowy dark green, something like that. And then let's bring the subsurface scatter. Maybe we don't need it that high. So here's 0. Let's just give it just a little bit so it looks like there's some sort of yellowy light shining through it. Okay, great. Well, that's cool. That's pretty basic though. But let's use a RS point attribute to bring in our MOPs fall off. MOPs underscore fall off. Gotta make sure you spell it right. Cool. And let's just plug this into the base color and hit refresh, and then just do this solo. And we can see what it's doing. So you can see that there's sort of this like black and white here. And if we put down a ramp in between that, and let's actually solo this instead of the particle attribute, we can kind of move these colors to kind of get different results. So we can use this as a mask, right? So let's do that. So let's put down a color mix, and let's plug this into, come on, input 2. We'll plug our mask into the mix amount, and then we're going to do a color correct. We will plug this into here. Come on. Plug this into the, God damn it, give me the string. Okay, plug that in there, and then plug that into input 1. So let's unsolo this, and then hit refresh. Right now, there's no difference, right? Because I've plugged this, I'm using my MOPs falloff as a mask between this material, but I haven't changed anything on this color correct. So as soon as I change this hue shift though, you can see that it's starting to change there, but it's not that apparent because I need to make this a little bit more pinched in like that. The other thing is I have this subsurface scatter with green. I want to also do this color mix here. We can just hit Y to sever these two, and we'll plug this into the MS color. And let's make this one green, and this one can be purple. There we go. Something like that. Maybe the green is a little bit more yellow, a little darker, something like this. And maybe the purple isn't quite so purple. Maybe it's more like a pink, something like that. That seems pretty good. And then maybe we kind of come back up here and adjust this. I don't know, try to find a nice color that works. And maybe I've got too much subsurface scattering, so let's just bring this down a bit. Something like that. I think that's looking pretty good. I don't know, but that's kind of cool. But you can just sort of adjust this with this ramp here and get some different effects. You could kind of make the leading edge be a different color or a different material, or you can make it glow. You could plug this into your emission color and crank up your emission a little bit. So that's kind of how you get these effects. That is basically it. It's a really simple thing. This is about the simplest form of growing things on that you can do. Just basically a fall off, and you basically make the fall off, you multiply the fall off with the P scale, and that's it. And I like using, you could do, if you didn't want to use this instance thing, you could do a copy to points and it would give you the same thing, except it's a little heavier on your system and it's a little faster, it's a little harder to render. This renders really quick. This was like 10 seconds a frame for this thing. So that's basically it for this one. I will come back with another tutorial where I'll show you kind of a little bit more, a few more advanced ways to get some more dynamic results with these sort of growing, spreading plant effects. I hope you found it helpful, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments.